The full Play It Today breakdown is linked in the description on theircheck.com. For EXCITEBIKE, the short answer is yes, it still makes sense to play, but only if you want a small, sharp, skill game, not a full modern racing package. EXCITEBIKE is not here to give you a campaign, upgrades, a career mode, or spectacle. It is here to ask one question over and over. Can you keep your speed without destroying your rhythm? That is why it still works. The best thing about EXCITEBIKE today is how clean it is. You understand the goal almost instantly. Ride fast, clear jumps, land properly, avoid overheating, and stop losing time to your own impatience. It is simple enough to start in seconds, but strict enough that sloppy play feels bad immediately. That makes it a good, short session game. A few runs can be satisfying because the improvement is visible. You are not grinding stats. You are learning when to use turbo, when to ease off, how to land, and how to read the next bump before it ruins your line. But that is also the limit. If you are looking for a deep racer, EXCITEBIKE will probably feel thin. It is historically important, sure, but that is not the reason to recommend it today. The modern reason is much narrower. It is a compact test of control and momentum. If that sounds appealing, it is still worth your time. If you need variety, progression, or a more complete motocross game, you may be better off treating EXCITEBIKE 64 as the more substantial alternate entry point. Now, how do you play the original legally today? For most people, the best option is EXCITEBIKE through Nintendo Entertainment System, Nintendo Classics on Nintendo Switch, online. That is the version to start with. It gives you the NES game in a low-friction modern format, and Nintendo's service features such as save and rewind make it easier to experiment without turning the game into a technical project. There is also Arcade Archives EXCITEBIKE on Switch, but that is not the default recommendation. It is a standalone digital release, and it is useful if you specifically want the Nintendo VS.SYSTEM arcade version. The catch is important. The listing identifies it as that arcade version, and it does not include the two-player mode or track creation function. So if your mental image of EXCITEBIKE is the NES version, especially with the familiar home console feel, do not assume Arcade Archives is automatically the better buy just because it is sold separately. It is official, it is playable today. It is just a different recommendation. There are also old Wii U and 3DS's routes that may matter if you already bought those versions in the past, but they are not good new player recommendations now. New purchases on those eShops ended in 2023, so the clean recommendation is play the NES version on Nintendo Switch Online. The low friction option and the best option are the same thing. Why start there? Because EXCITEBIKE does not need an elaborate remaster to make sense. It needs convenience and the right context. The NES version is the one most people are actually looking for, and on Switch Online, it is easy to launch, easy to retry, and easy to understand as a small arcade-style challenge. For purists with original hardware, that route still has value, but for most players, original hardware is not the practical answer. The point is to play the game, not turn access into the main event. The big thing to know before starting is that EXCITEBIKE is not really about holding accelerate and reacting late. The game is about managing speed. Turbo is powerful, but heat punishes overuse. Jumps are not just obstacles, they are tests of angle and landing. A messy landing costs momentum. A bad approach can make the next stretch worse. And once your rhythm breaks, the track starts feeling much more hostile than it looks. So the useful beginner advice is simple. Stop thinking like this is a straight racing game. Think of it as a momentum game. Use speed when the track lets you keep it. Back off when heat or landing angle will cost you more than the boost is worth. Watch the shape of the track before committing. A clean landing is often better than a heroic jump that throws the bike into chaos. You do not need a full guide, you need to understand what the game is testing. It is testing patience inside a game that constantly tempts you to go faster. That is the whole appeal, and the whole caveat. Excitebike is still recommended, but selectively. Play it if you want a crisp NES skill game that rewards control. Skip it if you want a full racing experience. And if you are playing today, start with the Nintendo Switch Online NES version, not the arcade release by accident.